Hi, this is James Valvis, and today I'm going to be reading you 7 poems, 7 very short poems that appeared in my book, How to Say Goodbye. And they were all published in different magazines, with the exception of The Rock, which was not published. I'm going to give those publication credits out right now, so I don't have to do it when I'm reading the poems. City Kid appeared in Reverb, which is a wonderful magazine, or was a wonderful magazine, out of Los Angeles area, and the editor of that journal eventually started Aortic Books, who published How to Say Goodbye, my book. So this was one of the first poems of mine that they published. And then The Rock, which was not published, it was not picked up by any place. I might have written it just prior to the book coming out, so it was original to the book. A Comedy in Two Lines, which was published in Nut House, a small humor journal, back in the day. I don't think it's still around either. Breasts, which is a poem that I've already made a video of, but I decided that these poems are really too short to warrant their own video, and so I'm going to put it here, and I might delete that video later on. That poem appeared in A Handful of Stones, which is a literary journal that published very small poems, very short poems, and it's only 3 lines, so it was that kind of magazine. I don't think they're around anymore either. Dog, which was published in Gravel. Fire and Love, which was published in Cirque, and now they are around. They and the next one, Forge, may be the only ones that are still in existence. Magazines come and go. A lot of them are fly by night. A lot of them are started with such great passion, and then after 3 years, they say, I don't feel like doing this anymore. I'd rather do something else, and they kind of go the way of the dodo. But that doesn't make them unimportant, or the publications any less important. It just means that those poems are extremely hard to come by. So if you have the opportunity to get them, they can be worth money, a lot of money. If an author appears in those journals that eventually breaks out and their work becomes rare, especially their early work, you can make a pretty decent buck. People are making a lot of money on old Bukowski literary journals, obscure journals, where Bukowski's work appeared. They get hundreds of dollars for some of those journals. That doesn't happen often, but if you do appear with somebody who breaks out like that, it can be profitable. And then the last one, Edward Scissorhands and Wolverine, Try to Shake Hands. That poem appeared in Forge, and that journal, I believe, is still around. I'm not entirely sure about that, but it's an online journal, and it was an excellent one at the time. And so these 7 poems are the 7 shortest poems in the book, and I wanted to, there's one other that's shorter, but I wanted that to have its own video. And a lot of these poems are just things that I dashed off. They're basically notes that I get an idea and I put it down, and then it's its own poem. In the same way that William Carlos Williams used to write poems in between handling patients. He'd just jot it down on a note. Or Emily Dickinson would, in between whatever she was doing, the laundry and the cooking, she would write down I heard a fly buzz when I died, or whatever. And so a lot of these poems are like that, and I don't even consider them writing for the day. If I mean to write, and I write a short poem like this, I don't say, well, I've written my poem and now I'm going to go. I usually follow it up with a longer poem, although sometimes the shorter poem ends up being the better work. I just don't know that, and I don't let myself get off as a writer saying, well, I wrote 3 lines today and now I'm done. You just can't get anything done if you're going to live by that kind of life. Anyway, so let's read these poems, and there are 7 of them, and I will give a short intro to each one of them, but not a very long one. Okay, the first one is City Kid, and it came from an observation that my daughter made, and I jotted it down. City Kid. Late one fall, we pass a small field with decaying pumpkins lying in the dirt. My daughter wants to know why everyone suddenly left their basketballs outside to rot. Okay, that's the first poem. And the second poem is The Rock, and this one has not been published. I actually kind of like it. I think it is it's a poem about my wife, and it's subtle, maybe a little too subtle for some people, but I'm quite fond of it. It's only 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 lines long, but I've always been a little fond of it. I'm always fond of the poems about my wife because they I love her so dearly. Okay, The Rock. He was married to a rock, gray and solid and strong, always there, unflappable. Others had flown like flew. She remained hard and heavy. When he needed her, she was there. When he didn't, he ignored her. Sometimes her face was wet. Must be raining, he thought. Like I said, it's a subtle poem. It's a poem about how we just expect people who are strong to be strong all the time, and when they're not as strong, we just kind of overlook it and just say, well, it must be raining, instead of she's crying. And so the third poem here is a comedy in 2 lines, and a lot of my short poems are just really just humorous little verses, and this is one of those. A comedy in 2 lines. Daughter. Daddy, what happened to the cow who jumped over the moon? Father. Shut up and eat your burger. So, again, a lot of these poems were written when my daughter was very young, and there's some playfulness going on there. When we were when I was after we moved out of New Jersey and down to Florida, but before we moved, in fact, we lived in a place in Toms River on Vaughan Avenue, and we had a large lawn, and it's kind of sloped down, and at the bottom of the slope, near the woods in the back, my dad built a doghouse, and he chained our dog Rodney there. He just put him outside. He wasn't chained there all the time. He was a house dog mostly. But when he wanted to go outside. You put him on the chain outside, and he'd go out there. But if he saw somebody, he was so excited to see people that he would run back and forth in this kind of semicircle. And he would run and run and run and run and back and forth, and you'd like wave at him and then go inside, because he was, and then he'd stop running and he'd go sit in his doghouse, and he was perfectly happy out there. He wasn't being abused or anything. So eventually we moved to Florida, and he died, but that's not what happens in the poem. I wanted to get something deeper in the poem. So anyway, let's read it. Dog. Chained to a pole, he ran back and forth in a wide semicircle each time he saw us. Digging his claws in, churning the dirt, no grass would grow anywhere he ran. When he died, we buried him right in the middle of the smile he made on the lawn of our lives. Okay, this next poem, Fire and Love, it was published by Cirque, and it goes like this. Fire and Love. What I like about fire is how it takes everything and leaves behind only ash. What I like about love is it does the same thing, only quicker. Now, I promised that I would read Breasts, which I'd already read, but I'm going to read it again here because I don't think it deserves its own video. Breasts. All my life I loved breasts, and now that I have them, my wife wants me to diet. That's not really true. My wife is pretty laissez-faire about my weight, but like I said, a lot of my poems, especially in this time, I was writing a lot of humorous verses and short verses, and this next one is also humorous in nature, but I also try to get a point across. And again, these are just short verses, almost notes. Now, when I first started writing poetry seriously, back when I was in the Army, I came across a writer named Vic Ramseth and a book called All You Who Sleep Tonight. And it's a wonderful book, and it's got a lot of formal verse in it. And it had this section in it of quatrains. These are 4-line poems, and that had rhyme schemes in it, usually A, B, or something of that nature. But they were wonderful poems. I enjoyed the heck out of them. And so every now and then I'll write a 4-line poem in honor of that kind of thing. This is one of them. Edward Scissorhands and Wolverine try to shake hands, and a fencing match breaks out. Some people aren't meant to be friends. Well, I hope you like these short poems. I do think that some people are not cut out to be friends. We often talk about how everybody should love everybody and everybody should accept everybody, but some people are just better off that they go their separate ways. And unfortunately, that's my 7 poems, so we're going to have to go our separate ways for a while. Please like, comment, subscribe, and share these poems. And thank you for listening, as always, and God bless you.